These are our siblings, these are our parents. Everyone here is affected by substance use disorder within our community and really within our state and within our country. No one is going through this unscathed.
And my window was open. It was July. It was a really hot day. And one of the cops came up and he reached into the car and he just hit me right in the face. And then he saw what I was doing as I tried to swallow this bag. And he reached into the car and started to choke me I assumed to try to get the bag out of my mouth. In the process, he fractured my larynx, which holds the vocal cords together. So I have a titanium plate in my neck that holds my vocal cords together so that I can speak.
It doesn't spare anyone, and it's got nothing to do with how smart you are or how good you are. It's not fair.
I hear in recovery a lot, people say that they're recovered, past tense. I understand the mentality, but I like to think that I'm recovering, and I will always be recovering.
It's like a peanut allergy, right? I love peanut butter, but it kills some people. Peanuts aren't going to kill me, or at least right now. But if it were suddenly to become an allergy for me, it's not because I'm not smart, it's not because I'm not good. It's just it hits different bodies in different ways.
Nearly 40 million people are affected by substance use disorder worldwide. The majority of the representation of substance use disorder that we see in the media portrays it with hopelessness and negativity. However, what we often lack is an in-depth look at the stories of individuals in recovery, the paths that they take, and the ways in which they experience hope. Each individual has a different lived experience with embracing recovery and finding strength in their communities, and all of these stories deserve to be heard.
So my name's Amy Bush. I am in long-term recovery. I've been sober since April 7, 2007.
Hi, I'm Maria Laura Pantoja. I am the director of the Drug Diversion Treatment Program for the Northwestern District Attorney's Office. Now you say that 5 times.
So my name is Nate. I got clean and sober July 13th, 2008 in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
My name is Sarah Ahern. I am a woman in long-term recovery from substance use and trauma.
So my name is Liz Wynot, and I'm the director of harm reduction programs at Tapestry. The most common reason for a fatal overdose is because someone used alone. And the work that we try to do, so much of it is about relationship building and about connection and about building trust and about figuring out ways for the person to not be alone and ashamed.
And the most important, I think, for me is staying connected to the other people in recovery in my life.
Definitely a stigma surrounding active drug addicts and alcoholics. And I can think maybe of no place more prevalent than a hospital setting. As somebody in recovery, I can fully admit that the belligerent alcoholic that continues to come to the emergency room, I'm not talking about a particular person, I'm just talking about alcoholic X that is in the emergency room again. Completely understand staff, nurses, doctors, technologists, anybody being annoyed, being tired of it, thinking, what are we gonna do for this person, you know? But that's it, it's a person. That is a human life.
There's so much of that isolation and stigma that happens from the recovery community as well. It's just been so important and continues to be so important to look at that and ask ourselves as individuals, as family members, as institutions, what do we need to do differently to reduce the chances of that person using alone?
I've definitely felt the stigma, people finding out that I'm in recovery. People just having this leave me. Sometimes it's how could you? Sometimes I can feel like their entire opinion of me change. But I learned this a very long time ago. What other people think of me is none of my business.
I became certified to become a recovery coach. Language can be very harmful, and it can continue to stereotype and stigmatize people and push people away. And so there's a reason we say substance use disorder instead of addict, or all these harmful words that I'm not even going to bring to this documentary.
As people become more educated on substance use, certain terms have been classified as harmful. While effort should be made to use the appropriate language to reduce stigma, it should be noted that people who have personal experience with substance use disorder will use whatever terms they feel most comfortable identifying with, and that should be respected.
So it's the first step, I think, is the biggest intimidation. You know, it's taking that first step to get to a treatment facility or asking someone for help with their addiction.
We are the only industrialized country in the world that does not have universal health care. So therein lies most of our problems when it comes to mental health, drug addiction, alcoholism, any illness.
Physical dependency and addiction are not the same thing. Physical dependency is if we all went to Italy for a month and we just put sinking cappuccinos every single day, like at least 4 or 5, right? When we came home, if we don't normally drink coffee, we end up feeling like we have a cold and a headache. We become physically dependent on the caffeine that we were getting in Italy. That's physical dependency. That's the same thing with like heroin or cocaine. The chemicals go in the body and it changes our neurology, it like changes the locks. And if you don't get continuous input, you'll go into withdrawal.
Substance use disorders cause people to rely on the high of substances to function, leaving them unable to get their needs met through personal relationships.
Through people who support us, people who guide us, our ability to actually support and guide other people. The big thing about addiction is we forget how to do that, or it no longer can compensate for how intense the pain is in our life, and we start turning to substances instead. Because the substances will numb them out, will take them away, will make us forget, will let us get euphoric for a time, or just make us get really kind of quiet and numbed out, right?
Barriers I see people in recovery face and the things that work best are, honestly, 80% of the time it's ourselves. I am my worst barrier towards me getting better.
At the time, I was blocked, you know. I was in a self-constructed prison, and I had a way out, but I wasn't willing to leave.
Live without and live into sobriety, and sobriety isn't just not drinking. It's like learning how to feel again, learning how to emote again, learning how to have fun in a whole different way than when it was all centered around drugs and alcohol. So addiction is a state of being. No one chooses it.
It just goes to show that it is a disease, right? When people try to like fight me on that, I'm like, well, how do you explain this, you know? Because if we could prevent it, that would be great, you know? If just having a good childhood made me not an alcoholic, like then I wouldn't be here.
If I have a sprained ankle and I go to the doctor, like they're gonna treat my sprained ankle, you know, and if we're looking at addiction as a disease, I'm gonna go to the doctor and I'm gonna say, I have this problem. Like, how can you help treat this problem? And not like penalize me. You know, and I think that sometimes penalizing people because of what they do perpetuates the problem, because people don't feel safe going to the doctor, or they don't feel like they're going to be respected going to the doctor, or to, you know, counselors who don't understand, which is why I think, you know, the recovery community doesn't dehumanize people, right? Like the recovery community doesn't stigmatize people.
Stigma is still identified as the #1 barrier to anybody seeking recovery support. For me, and I get emotional about this because, you know, I'm going on 10 years in recovery, and when I talk about the stigma, you know, the stigma for me was I was prescribed a substance by a provider that we all know was highly addictive, but that's not how I was treated by the system.
One memory of when I was in, you know, active use with heroin, and I went to the doctor and they had to, I think, draw blood for something, and she saw the track marks on my arm, and she said something, and I don't remember what she said, but I still remember the look that she gave me, and it was like a look of kind of like disgust and strong disapproval.
Drugs was something that was very influential within my community. And unfortunately, working in the court system, what you would see is a lot of black and brown people coming in. They didn't offer interpretation services like they do now. So it was interesting to be there, boots on the ground, helping community members not only understand the legal process, but understand what is the process of court.
That's a lot of what happens with drug addicts and alcoholics, is they get stepped over because people don't want to look at it. They don't want to look at the homeless. They don't want to look at impoverished people. They want to step over them, and they want to look forward.
It takes one bad decision to get into a situation where you could be addicted to alcohol or substances. I think that what I see, that people really have to get to a place where they're desperate and they feel as though they have no other way other than finding a way to get treatment.
It takes you about 3 weeks to get physically dependent to something. The same pill in a different body has a different response. It doesn't feel that compelling. When we struggle with addiction, it's because we don't know how to get, or we've forgotten how to get release from certain emotional states that are distressing, anxiety, sadness, or we don't know how to get access to certain states like happiness and joy and all the rest.
Individuals can develop an addiction to substances because of the way that they change the brain. Upon using, people crave more of a substance because of its effect on the pleasure centers in the brain, leading to withdrawal symptoms such as feeling severely unwell and anxious when they are not actively using. Substances can damage the frontal cortex of the brain, hindering the ability to make rational decisions. Often, the only way to get off of certain substances is medically assisted detoxification. Detoxification, or detox, refers to the medical stabilization of patients in withdrawal from substances, oftentimes serving as the first step in the recovery process. However, helping people detox safely is not treated with the priority that it deserves.
There is not enough services, especially in Massachusetts. We need more mass health detox beds. We need less for-profit detox beds and more mass health detox beds. We need more services for teens. All the teenage drug programs that I went to when I was younger are closed now because they couldn't fill beds anymore. So that means that people didn't know that they were there. So, and there's no way that there was not any teenager in Massachusetts struggling with addiction.
They used to be 28 days, but insurance companies in all of their wisdom decided that the difference between a 28-day stay and a 4 to 5 day stay creates the same outcome for a drug addict or an alcoholic, which is horseshit.
We need to have more open, honest conversations. Yes, it is ugly. Yes, it is scary. Own it. Step in. Roll your sleeves up. Let's talk about it. Let's show up for each other, right?
My sponsor told me that you're going to step over a lot of bodies in this process. And it's fucking true. There's a lot of people there's a lot of people out on the streets right now that are just dying on their feet. And that's another thing I see in healthcare, you know. There's absolutely no support for drug addicts and alcoholics, and certainly not for any mental health conditions, you know.
Well, mentally, I'm going to be completely blunt with you. Mentally, before this shit just happened, with my own thoughts and my own feelings, I committed suicide twice. I died. I don't feel like that no more.
And it's just the point I was at was probably like one of the darkest points I've ever been in. Like, it's like there was no light, there was nothing. And I kind of wanted something nicer for myself. And I'm glad I did it.
Life. I was barely existing. That to me is worse. I in no way wish I would die, but I would die before I ever went back to drugs, because like that life is, I would die if I went back to drugs, probably. But like that spiritual death, it to me is so much scarier than like if I were to just like get hit by a bus tomorrow. Like that to me doesn't scare me. If I like me relapsing to the point of losing my sense of self again, that's terrifying to me. So it's like I need to continue to live this way.
If I could go back in time, it would be nice to just not pick up that drink and just not use. Things are better when you're sober. I mean, you treat people better when you're sober. You actually know the definition of respect in all ways, in all forms. And when you're out using and drinking, sooner or later, no matter what your choice is, whether it's an alcohol, a drink, or a drug, you eventually become selfish.
And I remember at that time in my life, at 17 years old, thinking like, I don't want to live anymore. And if I could go back to that little girl and show her all the things and the people she would help, right? Like imagine, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, what? Like, it's like, you're just in this such a small world then, you know, and then you grow up and it's like, whoa.
And sometimes that's very difficult in a world that everybody's kind of just, you know, moving everything along, right? Especially in a court system where you're considered a docket number. You're not a person. You're an arrest number. And because of that, I've always decided, and I've moved, and I will shift mountains to treat people first and the problems second, because we're humans, and this world needs human touch and to be connected to human beings, especially in this kind of field, where one day you're here and behind me, all these people are already gone.
So my son's father really struggles with addiction, and he recently just got a 10 to 15 years in state prison. So I know my son really needed a parent, and I just felt he deserved for me to be well and be the best parent I can be. And, you know, it wasn't his decision to be here, so I really had to step up my game to really make sure that he's going to be taken care of and, you know, have his mom in his life.
So I had an aunt. She was a very special woman to me, my favorite person, and she passed away. I started working in the DA's office November 3rd, 1997, and she passed away November 2nd, 1998. And I'll never forget her. She had a drug problem, and she showed me how to just talk to people and not judge people and try to help people. Back then, it wasn't considered a disease. It was not considered a stigma. You were either a crackhead, you were somebody that couldn't control themselves. You know, it was horrible. The mistreatment was real, and it was horrible. And I remember her specifically saying to me, you know, Maria, I can't control this. This is beyond me. I really want to do better. I want to get better. But she couldn't help it. She couldn't help it because there wasn't enough medical assistant treatments to assist her at that time.
In so many ways, all of my ability to connect and my ability to feel love, to accept love, to give love, was completely and utterly stunted by the time I was 15 years old and I started using. And then I don't think it really opened back up until I got clean.
Many individuals in recovery find hope and light in believing in a higher power. In the 12 Steps to Recovery, most common in programs such as Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, those who attend meetings are encouraged to connect with God, but a higher power looks different for everyone. Recovering individuals who do not follow the 12 Steps of Recovery may also find hope in a higher power outside of themselves, which can look like any kind of external motivation that fuels recovery.
So the 12 steps of AA, I would say I'm definitely blessed to have been able to like go through the steps. And for me, it was like a gift of desperation. So basically what that means is that you are so like down and out that you're ready to basically try anything.
A higher power of your own choosing, right? And so in California, what they say is, go out to the ocean and try to stop the wave. Can any of us stop the wave? No. Is the wave then a power greater than ourselves, right?
The hardest thing is that it has to start with the person. I still, to this day, have never met anyone that got clean because somebody told them to do it. Like, they had to want it. And in the end, I had to want it.
Individuals, when we reduce them to a list of symptoms, we are missing out on the experience of the person, their personhood, and what brought them to this unique moment in time. And that matters for every person.
Yeah, it is like this whole, this barrier basically for helping people to get involved. Because I think a lot of times, like when you're struggling and you're in a really lonely place, it's hard to be like, oh, I'm gonna get up and go to a meeting, and a lot of times people find themselves relapse back in the bottle, or it's the easier option every single time. And
go back to that moment, because it was the hardest thing I've ever been through in recovery was losing my dad, but also the biggest spiritual experience was being able to be there and available, And I can remember after that, my sponsor saying, don't lose sight of the spiritual experience you got to have with your dad because you're in recovery. And
I finally got sick. And I didn't sleep for more than an hour for a year and a half. But last night I slept for 8 hours.
I haven't thought about drinking in like 3 days. And it was like, just like that, it was like, whoa, like that's weird. You know what I mean? Like that's a new feeling. And
I felt like I've been a spiritual fugitive for a long, long time because of my addiction. And I just believed I had a spiritual awakening happening at that very moment, because I let go.
When I first started, I met a girl, and a young woman, and we helped her with sober living. We helped her get her high-set GED. We helped her with the college enrollment process. And she texted me about a month ago and said, I want you to know that I am 2 courses away from taking the exam to enter a nursing program. And she said, I want to thank you for all the support that you've given me.
Me being able to show up for those kids sober is huge, right? And being able to not only physically attend those things, but be present, because there's a difference, right? Because before I got sober, I would be at things I was always with my family, I was always at the family parties, I was always these things, but I wasn't present. Do you know what I mean? And so being able to show up and be present now that I'm sober is just, it's honestly such a gift.
And I was gonna die if I didn't get clean. Probably had a month or 2 before I overdid it again, But today I don't want to die. I'm about to go to work, I'm doing things I never thought I'd do. Hit a trapeze this year. I never thought I'd do that getting clean, It's all these things in sobriety. It's these new, I have options now, and I get to take them. And that's what I'm doing.
It's the getting well. When I see someone who comes in here, hoodie up, head down, shoulders slumped, looking at the ground, and then, 2 weeks later, the hoodie's off, and then 2 weeks later, chin's up a little, and the shoulders are back.
Right, because you can give somebody all of the external things, right? And now you're going to be successful. You have an apartment, you have your children back, you have transportation. You're going to be successful. Well, we know that that's only really getting the surface, right? And how are folks going to sustain that and build on it?
Someone being on methadone or Suboxone is stopping them from having a needle in their neck. Great, but I do think the long-lasting, greater fixing your life comes from the community, because the opposite of addiction is connection.
The opposite of addiction is connection.
Opposite of addiction is connection.
The opposite of addiction is connection.
How the opposite of addiction is connection.
For people trying to recover from substance use disorder, finding a community that understands their needs and wants the best for them can make or break their recovery.
So it might be, better for me to go find some new friends who are not doing drugs, that, and then build that community together of moving through with, the meaningfulness and the purpose of building recovery-related community.
When you're in a room where there's 30 drug addicts, you can just be like, did this shit, and like there's just this acceptance around it. You accept what you've done and you try to not hurt people.
My greatest dream is not just to feed somebody, but to help somebody where people are helping me out from right now.
And I want to find that, it's like be able to pass it on, be able to be a part of anything that can help in any fucking way, because people need help. And people need help, like people need a hand up. You see somebody laying in the street, you gotta fucking help them up, right?
Many people in recovery now use their experiences and survival through hardship to assist those still in the thick of their recovery process from a place of understanding and empathy.
I currently still sponsor Women Today, and I stay in touch with the program of AA, and I actually got asked to work as like a recovery specialist when I first got I was about a year sober when I got asked to do that, and I found that was really what I liked doing, and I kind of like worked my way up from there, and that's how that happened.
I'm able to do for people what people did for me when I was down bad.
If someone struggles and relapses, okay. But our door's open. You come back when you're ready to. Come on back. We're always here to help you. And that is what you do. That is the point of community. That is the point of trusting relationships and just being authentic and accountable and reliable and honest and clear. I have the saying, being clear is kind, being unclear is unkind. Be clear with your intentions.
The approach is to support folks in exploring what that means to them, have them define it, have them make a plan, and then support them regardless of what that plan is. It's not for me to create an agenda for them. Our job is to really support them in discovering or rediscovering what their strengths are, what we call recovery capital, right?
Recovery homes, I like to call them recovery homes, not sober homes, are really important because it brings people in the recovery community together, people who have been clean for a long time that have, can be an example for others who are struggling to see that there is hope and there's a chance for you to really beat the addiction.
One of the pillars of that really facilitates and strengthens in the foundation of one's recovery is home, health, community, and purpose.
If we help one person, we're not just helping that one person. We're helping their mom, their dad, their siblings, their aunts, their friends, their colleagues. Anyone who loves that person struggles when they struggle. For us to help one person, if that's all we help, we know we're helping an army of people behind them.
So it starts with us in recognizing like, hey, I got stuff. Well, let me look at my stuff and how can I improve upon me? And then potentially that person will then treat the next person, right, differently, right? And recognize, hey, I got my own stuff, and be respectful and mindful that other people have stuff too, right?
So that's the goal, is to get recovery on the harbor, to be a household name in all the other peer recovery centers. Like if you live in a neighborhood in Boston, there is a recovery center near you.
So, because again, treatment isn't always the end, professional and personal enrichment. To be able to sustain a life outside of addiction is really important. So we try to help people to do what they need to do to reach their goals.
Do more artwork now that I'm sober, more like just being a part of life, an active person in society, trying to get a job, trying to look for housing, things that when you're out using you don't think about, you don't care about, being more human.
Over the years, there's been a lot of impactful moments. I've gotten to meet a lot of wonderful youth within our community and see them accomplish amazing things. And so recently, I have had the opportunity to work with about 10 youth from our community in Franklin County, and seeing them all collaborate together and just be lit up, so excited about the work that they're doing. And one of them just reached out to me saying, I got into my dream college, my #1 college, and I'm just so happy to be a part of the program working with you. I'm glad I joined this. And, you know, there can be a lot of negativity in this world, and it's moments like that I really hold on to.
We also work at the Reentry Center, which is for people reentering the community after being involved at the jail, involved in incarceration. And we worked with a women's group yesterday, and a lot of the women were, a lot of the folks who were incarcerated have been involved in drugs. And we were making creams with them yesterday, facial creams, and one of the women yesterday, there was like a double boiler. She had, just marks all over her arms from drug use, and she's like, I had a little PTSD thing here. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just turn my association into something positive. Yeah, when she had the sample, it was like, I don't know, it was just so touching to me to see her like rubbing the cream on her arms. Like she's just been through so much,
It's like that going through the forest and coming back out. Like, I had to do everything that I did. Like, every day that I lived through, every fucking street corner, every fucking needle, every fucking pipe, whatever, all of it had to happen so that I could sit here today.
The Golden Buddha, which is a story of these monks who had this golden Buddha. They hear the Mongols are coming to invade, so they don't want their Buddha statue stolen. They covered it with this concrete so that it wouldn't get pillaged. And the Mongols come, they pass right by it. Meanwhile, so long goes by, generations go by, hundreds of years go by, that people forget that it's gold underneath. And they, until some, Mongols leave, and one monk is praying under it one day, a little piece of concrete chips off, and they see that it's gold underneath, and they have this like, oh my God, we have this golden Buddha, guys, it's all gold under here. So I remember hearing that story when I was like maybe 40 days sober, like listening in group here at Rockland, just at our Weymouth location, and I just started crying, and I was just like, are you okay? I'm like, and I just realized, I'm like, I'm a gold person, like I've been living like this concrete fucking person, like, and like for so long that I forgot I was gold underneath. And
a message of hope that I have for folks that are in the trenches of recovery, or they can't see the positive aspects of recovery, or, only see the stigma and stereotypes, is that our community is so beautiful and so strong, and people keep showing up. In our community, as in Franklin County, there's so many different pockets of groups and organizations that are showing up, and they care, and they want to see our community grow. From our youth at our elementary school, our high schools, our Four Rivers students who are shedding light on this incredibly important topic, that want to learn more and are getting in touch with community members to spread the word and spread positivity. This is the work, and there are so many people doing it. Go to events, go help out, show up, go sit at the library, our beautiful library in Greenfield, go sit at the library in Irving, go bowling, go out into our spaces and rub elbows with people, say hello to people, get to know people. It is really a wonderful place to be, and it's so easy to focus on the negative, but if you take a moment and you look up and you look around, there's some really powerful, important work being done by people who genuinely want to make our space healthier and safer and improve it in the best ways possible. So keep showing up, keep doing the work, keep fighting the fight.